There we go.
Around for my greetings. How are you? Oh, wow. Space. Right.
There we go.
Yeah. All right. You can have more drink later.
All right, friends, I think we're gonna go ahead and begin. Good morning and welcome to you. We will go ahead and begin with a song of worship. I invite you to make your way to the front of the space, and you're welcome to join in whatever way feels right for you this morning. So you can stand, you can sit, you can listen, you can sing, whatever's gonna help you connect with God this morning. Was never God was not against me. God was never far away. Even forward and nothing but stay. Nothing but stay.
Make as well.
Good morning. I'm Brent, and on behalf of Haven, I want to welcome you to our Sunday service. Especially if you're here for the first time, we're glad you're with us this morning. Our mission here at Haven Berkeley is to create a safe place for all kinds of people to grow in meaningful connection with others and with God. And we hope you will experience some of that while you're with us today. As we gather here in person, we will continue to be mindful of one another and one another's needs to worship together while creating safety, honoring diversity, and centering around Jesus in this space. We ask everyone to keep their masks on during the gathering, other than those who are presenting to the group. We also continue to incorporate those who prefer to join us virtually today. Welcome to all of you on YouTube Live. Today we're streaming directly to YouTube, but for any watching, we'll keep an eye on the comment section and the Haven Slack channel in case you have anything to say. And for those on the Haven Slack, this channel is called Hybrid Haven Service Gathering. And now a few announcements. Worship night with Keith Watts. Join us on Saturday, November 18th, that's 15 days from now, for a special extended worship night from 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. with the incredible Keith Watts and the Berkeley High Jazz Combo. Altered November schedule. Don't forget about the schedule changes over the next 2 weeks. We will have a regular service here at Washington on the 1st and 2nd Sundays, the 5th, that's today, and the 12th, but no service on the 19th when we would usually meet on the 30th. Haven Board nominations. We have open seats coming on Haven's board in 2024. And we're now accepting nominations, including self-nominations for this valuable role. Traditionally, board invitations have been extended by our lead pastor in consultation with the current board. This year, prior to extending any invitations, we'd like to open the process to the broader community by allowing folks throughout the community to make nominations. So if you care about Haven's mission and want to contribute to its growth and development, this could be your chance to get more actively involved. The board hopes to receive all potential nominations in the month of November. To learn more about what's involved or to nominate yourself or someone else who you believe would be a good fit for the Haven board, please send an email to Leah with the subject line Haven Board. Haven's Christmas pageant and annual Christmas party. Mark your calendars and be sure to join us on Sunday, December 17th for our enchanting Christmas pageant. This year's pageant will be truly unique. Our talented kids and youth are in the process of writing the script and will be performing their own heartwarming rendition of the Christmas story during the service. Be ready to be dazzled by their creativity and spirit. The show will be accompanied once again by a group of talented musicians from Berkeley High Jazz. After the pageant, it's time for our annual Christmas potluck and party. Bring your favorite dishes to share and get ready for a delightful feast. And of course, we can't forget the White Elephant Gift Exchange and Orange Gift Exchange, a chance to exchange fun and quirky gifts, spreading laughter and joy. And now, we'd like to take a moment for community announcements. If anyone has something to share for 30 seconds or less, we invite you to come up front and share it in your mic.
Good morning. I just wanted you guys to know that on Facebook, because I'm old, I still use Facebook for a lot of communication with people. I started an informal, like a Friends of Haven page, so we can kind of use it to exchange
I don't know, info, I'm driving here, does anybody need a ride? Things that are going on with Haven to invite you guys to, or to remind you, like Lorraine was so nice to tell me that there was a time change. It's very helpful. So it's really informal. If you want to join it's a private group. I made it private so we could talk and it's not open to the public. But if you want to join, I can send you an invitation. Just let me know, or you can look for us on Facebook if you're a Facebook user. Just another way to communicate. What do you have to say?
Oh, Bob's running the top one.
So I'm Chris S. And as you've heard, the youth and children are hard at work putting together Christmas presents. So we are reaching out to everyone for help. So if you have a gift for props or costumes, or if you have something at home you think might be helpful, great gift Magi can bring, a sheep stuffing, something that might work for a costume, or if you're creative and want to make stuff with us, please reach out. You can reach out to Leah and then she can connect us. Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
So, on November 19th, I am performing with some of my friends at Berkeley Playhouse,
Oh.
at 7 p.m. So, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, you're a real
It's a
theater kid.
showcase thing.
Oh.
Yeah, a musical theater showcase. So if anyone's interested on details, we can get you these. And then I just wanted to name informally, but like we put it in the newsletter this week too. I'm kind of taking full, if anyone's looking for a place to Thanksgiving, and people to Thanksgiving with, let me know. And I would like to kind of help facilitate to make sure nobody's on their lonesome or feeling like it would be really nice to be with some other people. I know that our table will have space and there may be other tables as well. So if you are also at you're hosting something, but you're like, we could have a couple more people, you could also reach out to me and I will do my best to kind of help network people to make sure everyone's with others, giving thanks if they would like to be.
Cool. Any other announcements? Before we pray, I'd like to take a moment to recognize that as a Jesus-centered spiritual community, we at Haven have our roots in a Christian tradition which throughout history has caused harm in ways that we have not reflected the loving heart of God. One way we hope to participate in naming and healing this harm is through the practice of land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that as many of us gather here in person, we are gathered on the ancestral homeland of the Ohlone people. Most of us are settlers on this land, whether we came here by our own choice or another's, living in a place that was stolen and colonized by settlers before us. This land acknowledgement is a simple way of showing our respect, our care, and making a small effort towards addressing the injustices that have erased Indigenous peoples' history. We honor the Ohlone who came before us and cared for this land, and who are still part of this community today, and we seek to take actions that repair these harms going forward. And finally, at this time, I'd like to invite you to join me in taking a deep breath and centering yourself as we prepare to pray our opening prayer together, which will be shared on our screen. Creative, loving God, we come into your presence as a community seeking safety, deeper spirituality, and a sense of home. We thank you that you are the God who calls each of us from wherever we come and includes us fully in your family. In this community, we see equal space for every race, every ethnicity, every gender, and every orientation. Let us make room here for rich and poor, ability and disability, left and right, belief and doubt. In a world that labels and divides, Help us live together in acceptance and unity, finding you in the midst of all we do. Amen. Thank you. At this time, we'll release the kids and youth to go with their leaders, and we invite Scott to come up and share a bit of what the board has been discussing over the past few meetings. While he does that, why don't you take a moment and greet someone nearby you?
Hey,
Hello.
what's up?
This thing is so weird. It's like counterintuitive to do this. I don't know why.
Yeah, this one's the opposite.
Oh, see,
Yeah.
like a normal. Apple.
Yeah.
Oh, this is Apple. Oh, well, that's why. Because they think they're special.
This is also Apple. You can change it in your settings.
Apple still thinks they're special.
It's true. But only because they are.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's like a $2,000 machine.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's insane.
But it'll probably last like 10 years. Androids will break down within like one.
Yeah, I don't know. We have one in the closet that I use it much for BBC. So
Nice.
yeah, I found some zip code in Birmingham. And use that, and then you watch all BBC stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Good morning, everyone. I am your board secretary, and we as a board meet once a quarter, every 3 months, and we have board discussions. And so this is something we started last quarter, giving a board report. We're saving Don coming to discuss finances for next month. So this will be rather brief, partly because it doesn't include the financial stuff, but also much of what we discuss you actually saw in the form of announcements. So this is really an effort to be more transparent, have you understand like what it demystify what is the board is not this cabal of people having secret conversation in a back room with smoking cigars. But really it's just us, including this guy who wanted 10 minutes late to sort of sorry.
Oh.
So any of you can be on the board, and we do have a vacancy, and we encourage all of you to consider. It's a privilege to serve, and it's actually a fairly light burden. We, like I said, meet once every 3 months, and we have discussions around the priorities of the church, and then also making plans and that sort of thing. So I invite you into that conversation, and if you're not there formally as a board member, you're also welcome to attend, and of course, you have some insight to that conversation today with this board report. So let's proceed. So these are the topics that we discussed as a board, and several of them show up on our announcements. We keep going. So the first is clergy compensation committee. So there is another way to serve besides being on the board. And if you're interested in being on the clergy compensation committee, right now it's composed of Chris, Don, Brent, and Kim. So if you're not interested in serving, but you have some thoughts, those are people you can share those thoughts with. And so the things that were under discussion and are under consideration by that committee are potential positions in the future, staffing for kids and youth ongoingly, and then also the consideration of a potential worship leader or leaders. We already discussed that there's a vacancy with the board, and we invite you to consider stepping into that role. Next. And then, of course, we had an announcement about the upcoming kids pageant. So there's that, and there's also there's a poll out there for your thoughts on the Christmas Eve service, whether you're able to attend, and if you are, whether you prefer in-person or hybrid service. And of course, if you do have an in-person service, it needs to be someplace. We still have to figure where it would be, and it needs to be a place where we can actually light candles. It's an important board topic was the value of the that's where some of our conversations end up. Next slide. Also, there's a lot of discussion around follow-up to the retreat. And so one of the things is Dorothy's Rest really the best place for us. There are a lot of advantages to Dorothy's Rest, and we've learned recently about some of their mission. Their prices are going up, but in learning about what they're raising money for, it's rather inspiring. So maybe that calls us into being there. At the same time, there are some obstacles and limitations and concerns about that space for accessibility and safety as well. So if you are interested in participating in that. There actually is a group that's going to tour contending sites, possible alternatives. We have the vision team as well, which you can see the members of. If you are interested in also looking at the feedback that was written on those cards and being part of the conversation about what to do with that and how that leads forward to putting into action some of the ideas that were surfaced through those card feedback. That's either people that you could join or people you can give input to. We also have a calendaring subcommittees. There are so many ways to connect and plug in to Haven. Right now we have 3 people who are participating in that, and you're welcome to join them. And it's really kind of doing the nuts and bolts of looking at dates for planning the coming year. More opportunities for plugging in. Is accessibility important to you? Of course, it's important to every single one of us, but do you want to actually take some time to work with others to have conversations about accessibility and accessibility needs and how to fulfill those accessibility needs? Ash and Isaac are going to be facilitating that. Others will be involved as well, and we invite you to join them. And we're also considering a safety team apart from that accessibility team. So obviously, at recent retreat, we had some concerns around safety, and luckily we had people there with some real skills and knowledge of knowing what to do in those situations, and we want to make sure that we expand that beyond just a collective few, so that we all feel like in a situation where safety is a concern, we're coordinated and we're knowledgeable about what we can do in response to any safety concern. Is that the last one?
Yep.
Yes. So a couple themes I just wanted to lift up. There are lots of ways to plug in. And as you can see, there are a lot of people fulfilling multiple roles. And I just want to acknowledge them. If you're somebody who's kind of filling in a lot of gaps, that's wonderful and I really appreciate it. And I want to also acknowledge Luca, who is really helping to coordinate volunteer efforts. So it could be on Sundays, breaking down, setting up, participating in all these different ways, but also can be serving in different conversations. So if it's stacking up chairs is not your thing, but contributing your thoughts and ideas is more your thing. There are lots of places to do that. So thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you, Scott. And yeah, it's nice to have the opportunity to share. I think this is a good practice, being able to share kind of some of what we're chatting about with everyone, and hopefully it's helpful part of those conversations to get a little glimpse. And yes, we welcome your participation anywhere you want to participate. All right. Go ahead and get into our teaching for today. Imagine, if you would, a coin waiting to be flipped. Heads, you could make the world better by double or more. Tails, you destroy the world completely. Would you flip that coin? Would you take that bet? If you've heard of this hypothetical coin flip, anyone heard of it?
Yep.
Yeah, then you probably know about the person who apparently regularly boasted that he would flip that coin. And he encouraged others to do the same. Sam Bankman-Fried, also known as SBF, the crypto king, champion the coin flip. In a courtroom in New York City, Carolyn Ellison, his ex-girlfriend and former CEO of one of his companies, testified to that effect. Ellison's testimony was part of a month-long trial that ended this week, of course, and on Thursday, the verdict was issued saying Sam Bankman-Fried was found guilty on 7 charges of fraud and conspiracy. He was convicted of essentially siphoning money from the cryptocurrency exchange that he ran, FTX, to his own crypto trading company called Alameda Research, named after, yes, our very county here. The verdict was a climactic event in what the New York Times this week called one of the fastest and most spectacular fails from grace in modern corporate history. A year ago, SBF, Sam Bankman-Fried, was the 30-year-old wunderkind of Silicon Valley with a net worth of 20 billion. And in a year, he went from someone hailed for his supposed commitment to effective altruism to being convicted of absconding with at least $8 billion of other people's money. He went from fascinating investors and journalists alike with his quirky personality as he wore grubby shorts and t-shirts while sharing the stage with Bill Clinton and Tony Blair. And he boasted about playing League of Legends during important meetings with investors, to being convicted as the mastermind behind this massive fraud at the heart of his two companies, dragging his closest friends, his significant other, his family members, including his two Stanford professor parents, all down with him. Now, Sam Bankman-Fried's story and how it ends, at least or its ending, is in many ways, I would say, surprising. As the story goes, if something seems too good to be true, it probably is. The coin flip story says a lot about this man's character, which is likely why the prosecution wanted the jury to hear it. Is it any surprise that someone who's willing to risk the obliteration of the universe for the possibility of a huge payoff would be willing to risk billions of other people's dollars for the same thing? Well, I start with this little anecdote about SBF because the story of his rise and fall actually feels oddly relevant to the story we're looking at today. As you might remember, we're in the midst of this teaching series I'm calling Activated Faith, in which we're thinking about how we might grow in action, inspired by some of the provocative little parables that Jesus told. Jesus told stories that were meant to activate his listeners, to provoke some response, stories with intent, as my former New Testament professor used to say. But it's not always easy to understand what the intent is, what the action he was needing to provoke is intended to be. Often these stories open themselves up to multiple interpretations, but I think Jesus intended us to be puzzled, to be surprised, to have to work with it and understanding, and in the process to be shaped, that we might move forward into meaningful action. So today we're going to look at a story that has been puzzling readers of Luke's gospel for a long time, and likely puzzle us too, as Jesus invites his audience to consider what we might learn, perhaps, by attending to the Sam Bankman-Frieds of the world. So we pick up Jesus' story at the beginning of Luke chapter 16. Jesus also said to the disciples, there was a rich man who was informed of accusations that his manager was wasting his assets. So he called the manager in and said to him, what is this saying about you? Turn in the account of your administration, because you can no longer be my manager. Then the manager said to himself, what should I do, since my master is taking my position away from me? I'm not strong enough to dig. I'm too ashamed to beg. I know what to do, so that when I am put out of management, people will welcome me into their homes. So he contacted his master's debtors one by one, and he asked them first, how much do you owe my master? The man replied, 100 measures of olive oil. The manager said to him, take your bill, sit down quickly, right quickly. Then he said to another, and how much do you owe? The second man replied, 100 measures of wheat. The manager said to him, take your bill, write 80. The master commended the dishonest manager because he acted shrewdly. For the people of this world are more shrewd in dealing with their contemporaries than the people of light. And I tell you, make friends for yourself by how you use worldly wealth, so that when it runs out, you will be welcomed into the eternal homes. The one who is faithful in a very little is also faithful in much. And the one who is dishonest in a very little is also dishonest in much. If then you haven't been trustworthy in handling worldly wealth, who will entrust you with the true riches? And if you haven't been trustworthy with someone else's property, who will give you your own? No servant can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and money. Sorry. Super clear, isn't it? This passage here has two sections in it. Okay, the first is the parable, the story, which seems to deal with some issues around money and management. And the second contains some additional thoughts, some just general teaching about money. Now, I think the second section seems pretty straightforward, personally. But the parable itself, is it just me, or is Jesus like trying to mess with people's heads? If you're feeling a bit confused or uncomfortable, the good news is you're not alone. By many scholarly accounts, this parable just might be the trickiest of Jesus to interpret. It's commonly called the parable of the unjust steward or the dishonest manager. Partly the name for a role model, at least the kind of role model we might expect Jesus to present. So is that what he's doing? Let's dig in and see if we can figure it out. So to review, the story starts with this person of great wealth being informed that his manager is squandering his assets. Now, whether the guy is maliciously managing the money poorly or simply incompetent, we don't know. It doesn't say. But the result is the same. The rich man is not pleased and he wants to fire the manager and find someone else to take over the books. But first, he needs the manager to pull the records together so he has something to turn over to someone else. Now, a cultural note here. This is likely not a lowest level slave brought in to do manual labor type person. This guy is a white collar servant of sorts. He's similar to maybe a financial planner or stock investor we might see today. Someone the very rich hire to manage their assets, collect their debts, and so on. The manager in this world would have had total financial authority. So they have the right to make purchases, to collect debts, to forgive debts, as if they were the master themselves. That's as long as they're actually working. Obviously, if you had someone who had total control over your assets, you want them to be somebody you thought you could trust to actually manage that well. And clearly the rich man has become aware of the fact that this manager isn't proving worthy of his trust, so he rightfully chooses to sack him. And that's where things get kind of interesting. The manager goes back to his office and devises a plan. And it's a crafty plan. He knows that once this gig is up, he has no marketable skills to make a living with. He's not a manual labor type of guy. So if he thinks that's out, he is too proud to beg. So he thinks it's unlikely he'll find another job as a financial manager once word gets out why he was fired from this gig. So what is he to do? Well, the guy decides to pull out, his first century version of an iPhone and start working his way through contact list. He calls each of his employer's debtors, and with each of them, he engages in a little creative bookkeeping. Jesus uses two examples here, but we can safely assume they represent many more debtors. Now, the scale of the debts named is quite large. So much so that it's unlikely that these debtors are personally indebted to this wealthy man. These are probably business transactions. Okay, he's negotiating with other business people. The manager asks each of the debtors what they owe. Maybe we get a clue into why he can do so well at his job, because he seems to have to ask them, how much do you owe? Shouldn't he know? Isn't that what his job is? Anyway, the first guy says he owes 100 measures of olive, which is the equivalent of 875 gallons of olive oil. That's a lot of olive, right? This would be equal to more than 3 years' pay for a daily wage worker. So in the present time, it would have been a lot of money. That's why I say it's like a business transaction. Immediately after the debtor tells him how much he owes the master, the manager says, okay, make it 50. Let's chop that 875 gallons in half. And what debtor is going to object to that? He's being offered an amazing deal. And for the moment, the manager still has the power to make that happen. So the debtor agrees, alters the promissory note, cuts the debt in half. Again and again, the manager cuts these deals with all these people who owe his master money, and all would go well, except, of course, the master finds out. We don't know how, but he finds out. And rather than leave the guy for cheating him more, what does he do? He praises him. He commends this dishonest manager for acting socially legal. So how does that make sense? Well, another important cultural clue might help us out here. It has to do with ancient customs in regards to reciprocity. Customs of the day dictated that if someone did something generous for you, you were socially expected to reciprocate, to repay the favors. So this guy, for the moment, has control over these debts. If he cuts them in half, which he totally has the power to do at this very moment, the debtors will no doubt feel they have him to thank for cutting him done such a good deal. Likely, the master provides for the manager's room and board. So he knows once he's turned out on the street, he'll now have lots of favors. Favors he secured with his master. That's what he means when he devises this plan and says, I know what to do, so when I'm put out of management, people will welcome me into their house. Pretty crafty. So why does the master commend it? This is the part where it seems like maybe Jesus is not saying with us. We're all ready for the conclusion to be the master finds out the man has cheated him, he strips him of his clothes, he beats him severely, throws him into prison, and so it will be with you if you squander what your master has given you, right? That's kind of like the expected conclusion. That's not how Jesus wraps up the story. Instead, the master finds out what the manager's done, and his reaction is like, well played. Well played. Right? The master seems to be genuinely impressed at this guy's shrewdness. He might be a total scoundrel, but you gotta give him something, he's smart. He is clever. And then it seems to earn a bit of respect. This guy has even painted his manager into a corner because he's changed the debts on behalf of him. This master's own reputation is also on the line because this guy was acting on his authority, right? And if he turns around and reneges on all the deals the manager just cut, his own reputation is tarnished. In a reciprocity world, you don't want all your business associates to see you as either out of control of your own assets or someone who backs out of a deal. So to cry foul makes the master look bad. The guy has totally exploited him for his own gain. He secured his own reputation and likely also probably has given the reputation of the boss a few boosts as well, just for being so, charitable in cutting these deals. So you gotta admit, like the guy or not, he knows how to get things done. So what are we supposed to do with this character? What's Jesus telling us? Is he a fan of chasing wealth? That can't be. This is the same Jesus who spoke clearly to the rich young ruler, remember, said if he wanted to follow Jesus, he needed to sell all his possessions and give them to the poor. This is the same Jesus who said it's easier for a camel to walk through the eye of a needle than the rich to enter the kingdom of heaven. This is the same Jesus who said, blessed are you who are poor, for the kingdom of God belongs to you. And the same Jesus who says at the very end of our passage, you can't serve God and money. So it's in the broader context of all of Jesus' teachings on money that this parable appears. So we can't be saying we should be chasing wealth. Does this story mean we should cheat others and we should buy things? Not exactly. But I do think there might be something Jesus wants us to add. And it's summed up in Jesus's first comments after the parable is done. For the people of this world are more shrewd in dealing with their contemporaries than the people of light. I don't think Jesus is asking his people to become people of the world rather than people of light. I don't think he's asking them to throw their integrity out the window and cheat and steal, but he is asking them to pay attention to the smart way that those who have less scruples seem to go about their business. He does seem to believe there's something they might learn from that. And the key to what that might be comes at the parable's end. And I tell you, Jesus says, make friends for yourself by how you use worldly wealth, so that when it runs out, you will be welcomed into the eternal homes. Make friends for yourself. Use your money to make friends. Why? Because money runs out and it's impermanent, but relationships have eternal value. You see, I think Jesus is being shocking and a bit cheeky to make an important point. Money is tied to this life and it's of no value in whatever's next. Just like the old cliche said, you can't take it with you. Whatever money we hoard or spend on ourselves, it's of little use to us in the end. Jesus has made this point through different parables and sermons before, but here's the new twist. So if you can't take it with you, you might as well spend it on something you can. And apparently that something is relationships. Relationships. People who will welcome us into eternal homes, just like the forgiven debtors welcome the manager. Our money might not be permanent, but apparently our friendships could be. I think Jesus uses this cheeky story to teach a lesson because he knows his audience. He's speaking to mainly poor and working class folks. These folks are not of the world of the master or the manager. They likely look with disgust on all of that, even if they envy their money. But perhaps to them, Jesus is saying, sure, there is plenty to critique there. I'm certainly not endorsing the dishonesty or the greed, but there's something you could learn that could be useful to you. Reciprocity is a powerful ally. A number of Jesus's core followers, remember, were originally fishermen. And when Jesus first called them, he told them he'd show them how to fish for people. I wonder if in this story that's some of what he's doing. The bait for human beings, of course, is worms, and they can't be caught with nets. But perhaps money, resources, for all the dangers and faults, can actually also be very useful in this work of catching people. Now, it sounds a bit crass to say it that way. Is Jesus saying we should buy our friends? Bribe people into the kingdom? I don't think so. I think that's a pretty reductionist way of looking at it. But what I really think Jesus is saying is just that generosity is powerful stuff. It has a profound ability to open up relational opportunities. Generosity can disarm people in meaningful ways. It puts us on friendlier terms. And the ministry Jesus is calling his followers to share the blessing, fullness of life that Jesus brings, that is a generous ministry that happens best in the context of personal relationships. So why not blow some money as part of that endeavor? So how exactly does Jesus want us to respond to this crazy parable? If Jesus' parables are stories with intent, what is that intended reaction? Well, I think the first thing is to remember that whatever assets we have, we are only managers. We are managers. From dust we came, to dust we will return. Whatever we have to spend is what God has entrusted to us. We are controlling assets that have been given to us to control, but which have also been given to us for a season, and at some point will be taken away. Ultimately, this is not our, it is God's. But the divine is giving us real authority and agency. God is giving us permission to spend on their behalf. We see in other places, like the parable of the talents, that God expects us to invest what we're given, to manage, not simply bury it in the ground to keep it safe. With this parable, I hear Jesus saying, go ahead and spend the money. I want you to. Just make sure you're spending it on the right things, something that will pay off long term. And when you do, I will say to you, my friend, well played. I don't think that Jesus tells this story of the dishonest manager as an example of how we then should live. Not really. I don't think it's a go and then do likewise kind of parable. I think it's more of a how much more kind of parable. This is another one of Jesus's favorite teaching devices. If this is true, How much more is that true? If God feeds the ravens, how much more will God feed you? If God clothes the flowers, how much more will God clothe you? In this case, I think maybe Jesus might be saying something like this. This shrewd manager, he only cared about, his pursuit of money led him to play the system so that he would be financially secure. But in the end, the security was reliant on having positive relationships with others. He used money to bless others, which then forged relationships for which he would benefit. If this guy, who's only motivated to be generous to save his own skin, could experience blessing and reciprocity for his hospitality, how much more could you, who seek genuine relationships, experience that fruitfulness of hospitality? If this guy, who's only motivated to look after himself, understands it's in his best interest to invest in others, how much more should you put that in practice? For the manager, relationship was the means to an end, but for you who care about others and seek their welfare, just as I, Jesus, myself do, the relationship is the end. The money is just the means. So how much more fruitful could your efforts be when you take a page from the shrewd manager's book and bless some folks in your sphere with what you've got? It's my money anyway, so go out and spend it on something that will pay off long term. So if this interpretation is valid, then that brings us to what Jesus is inviting people actually into, to actually share what we have, to bless others, to give things away. That's the invitation, right? Jesus has for us to share whatever resources we have as a means of blessing others practically and opening up relationships. And we may not always feel like we have that much to give financially, but I think the invitation still holds, just as it did for Jesus's working class audience, right? So this might mean taking someone out for a meal or offering to pay a bill that they can't manage right now, but it also could be offering to watch their kids for a few hours or giving them a ride somewhere. The point is giving practically of whatever resources we have, remembering they're not ours to possess, but to steward, and Jesus is inviting us to steward them towards others. Personally, I think Jesus is kind of having fun with this story. I think he probably thought it was funny to present this SBF scoundrel type character and then invite his listeners into a bit of playful discomfort. But in the same way, I think he's inviting us to have fun with this. This shouldn't be an onerous task. It should be a freebie. Here's the money. It's not yours. Just give it away. Make some people happy. Make new friends. See what happens. Have fun doing it. Over the last decade, social psychologists have done a lot of research around a practice that they call pro-social spending, meaning spending on other people. And these researchers wanted to find out if there was any correlation between how people spent their money and how happy spending it made them. And they found out there is a very strong one. In experiment after experiment, in culture after culture, among laborers in third world Uganda to affluent college students in Canada, the results are the same. Despite what people predict will be true of them, when they actually spend money on others, they feel happy. Many of the experiments went something like this. So you give someone an envelope of money, say $5, it could be $20. You tell people, spend the money by the end of the day on yourself, or spend it on someone else. At the end of the day, you call, you ask them what they spent it on and how they feel as a result. Person after person who was given money for themselves, bought a coffee, they got some earrings, makeup, whatever. They'd say it's fine. It didn't really do much for them emotionally. But the people who took the money and bought their friends a coffee felt much happier. Similar experiments in the workplace yielded interesting results. If you give every member of a team a bit of cash and tell them to spend it on themselves, they'll each go out to lunch or something. There will be no net positive effect. You essentially lose them. But you have them spend the money on their teammates and things change. Teams are not only happier, they are markedly more productive. Meaning the financial investment more than pays off, it actually makes you money. One of the researchers, Michael Norton, summed it up in a TED Talk on the findings this way: if you think money can't buy happiness, you're just not spending it right. One of my favorite tasks as pastor here at Haven is working with folks from our Haven board to give away at least 10%, if not more, of everything that comes in here at Haven. So every year we support folks in our community when financial needs come up. We help pay bills. We try to make gifts wherever they're needed. Sometimes we send gifts like DoorDash cards, flowers, etc., just to communicate care in the midst of a personal crisis. We also give to a number of organizations outside of Haven who are doing important work that we believe in, we want to support, like groups like the Transgender Law Center for their work defending transgender rights, or the local indigenous organization, the Socorrete Land Trust, or Insight Housing, formerly known as Berkeley Food and Housing, for their work helping unhoused people in our community find shelter. And since our recent retreat, we've also been imagining together, right? So next steps for Haven. Ways we can both grow and building community amongst ourselves and reaching folks who don't have a spiritual home, but might appreciate finding one here. And as our leaders process all that input and we discern some experiments to run in 2023, I wonder how we might think about more of this, deploying resources in these efforts. Might part of what we feel called to move into the coming year include some more opportunities for pro-soldiers. I think so. So God's inviting us like a manager to spend the divine's money, to be shrewd about it, to spend it on others. But I think there's one more important takeaway here. And it's found in these words from Jesus at the end. If then you haven't been trustworthy in handling worldly wealth, who will entrust you with the true riches? Who will entrust you with the true riches? The reality is that the most valuable things do not come in cash, credit, or crypto. Jesus is inviting us to focus on something beyond that, something he calls true riches. What is he talking about? For me, true riches is a different kind of currency. We might call it the currency of the kingdom of God. I think true riches is a way of speaking to the intangible, inestimable power and presence of the divine that flows in and through our relationships, our prayers, our acts of service, our words of encouragement to one another and to our neighbors. True riches are those moments of transcendence that remind us that we are not alone, that our actions are not isolated, that we are connected to something bigger and truer and more beautiful than ourselves. True riches means to me spiritual power, sacredness, unity, divine. And even if we want to continue to grow as a community that's truly creating safety and honoring diversity and centering on Jesus, then we need more than money. We need true riches. If we want to lay hands on one another and see each other encounter the Spirit's presence as we call out to the divine, we need true riches. If we want to participate in the smashing of idols that uphold systems of oppression and distort our view of reality and God, we want to help tear down idols like patriarchy, heteronormativity, white supremacy, capitalism, then of course we really need some true riches. If we want to cultivate community that can endure all the crises of our world, all the disasters taking place around us, looming on the horizon. We want to live into interdependence, collective care in the midst of all that is threatening to tear us apart. We need true riches. And that starts apparently by managing well what we have. Understanding that as we're faithful with what we've already been given, we may have the opportunity to be faithful with more. Friends, we don't have to flip a coin to magically make the world a better place. We don't have to risk destroying everything to improve the world we inhabit. I don't think we're called to gamble with the world. I think we're called to invest. So may we invest wisely. May we steward our resources well. May we open up pathways to more relationships that prove fruitful as they benefit from the infusion, not just of monetary, but of true riches. And as we do so, may we experience Chief Jesus saying, well played, alms. I'm going to pray for us, and then we'll go into a time of discussion. God, I'm grateful for the ways that in some ways we have been learning some of these lessons. I'm grateful that this is a generous space, but that has been true. And I pray that you would continue to grow us in wisdom and how to best manage, how to best pro-socially spend some of what we've been graciously trusted. Would you continue to speak to and through this community as we continue the journey of learning how we might best build relationships with the world around us, understanding that that has the capacity to be a one. God, we will experience more of those privileges. Would you lead us to continue in stewarding what we have, that we might be trusted? All right, friends. So we're going to go into our time of discussion. And I have a few questions you could consider together, or of course, always, whatever the story is brought up. So the first is, how does the story strike you? What do you take from it? Second, this idea of pro-social spending. What does that look like in your life? And how might you want it to look going forward, either for you personally or for Haven? And the third is, what do you think about this term, true riches? How would you describe them? What might you think it means to steward them? So those are our discussion questions. We'll go ahead and get into groups of about 4 or so for 10 minutes, and then we'll come back for
How's you guys so far?
Other what? I think it was good. We went to our friend's 50th birthday party last night. And she just like wanted to dance the night away. There was this
Full raging,
day. Was that?
full raging.
It was a rager, man.
Awesome too.
The drinks were flowing. The old people were dancing. We were the youngest people there. It was very fun.
It was fun to see all the people doing. Amber loved it. We went to a birthday party.
Yeah.
There was an old gentleman there named Paul. He was like 60 something. Started screaming like dancing with him. Yeah.
How are your weeks?
I'm old late. I know him. I was sitting just crawled the applesauce. I just got up and like, you know, you get there and like that. I felt a snap. I was like, are you kidding me? Oh, lady.
Something great. Or
No, it's actually a check again. They loved it. Said they didn't see anything big, but then the way they saw it go down. And I was like, yeah.
did they do X-ray?
They did. So I had to go to orthopedist
Mm.
on Thursday, and then after that, they went to make sure it's out.
Green stick fracture.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I'm still in pain, but it's still slow. Yeah, all the lady stuff.
She's younger than all of us. She's lost.
I like this, story. I think I haven't heard it, like, going to church over the years. I haven't really heard this one that much, probably because it's so weird. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, but yeah, I like the potential interpretation of pro-social, right?
Yeah. That is a very weird story. That's like very.
Well played.
Why you tell me you're gonna fire you?
That was your first Monday.
Yeah.
I find it very interesting where different interpretation depending on what type of Christianity you grew up in. Growing up in a very Orthodox Catholic religion, I remember very explicitly hearing this story as a kid, but the
Okay.
interpretation was that you were supposed to get rid of relationships where people abuse your wealth,
Oh
where they
my
take
God.
advantage of you because they're not considering your needs or your generosity. They're just taking it upon themselves to take advantage of your generosity. So it was completely from the boss's side, not
boss's
from
point of
the
view.
manager's point of view, and how like it should be, if it's your money, it's your option to steward that. It's your option to remove someone's debt. Hearing it this way, I really like this. Like, yeah, he
Yeah.
definitely overstepped when he knew he was going to be fired
Yeah.
and did that. But I love the pro-social aspect of it. So,
Yeah.
That's something that personally I've always been a big fan of. Never in my life have I had like massive amounts of savings just like sitting there, and the thought of all of these billionaires where they have more money than they could ever spend
Yeah.
in 100 lifetimes,
Yeah.
like Bezos and Zuckerberg and Musk and stuff like that, where they could get rid of 90% of their wealth and still be billionaires and still never spend all that money, and they don't, they just hoard it. And then there are people like me where they're paycheck to paycheck, and I spend my money on things that I can do for other people, like nothing crazy, but real gifts here and there.
Yeah.
That's amazing to me. Like, I have this one friend, she is very, what's that guy, DeSantis?
Ron DeSantis.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh,
I don't know how. And she's like, she like kind of likes Trump too. And I was like, oh, dude. I was like, and then she likes Elon Musk. And I was like, well, why? Oh, because you're rich.
That's it.
So rich.
Oh, God.
Like they get access to that.
They don't like you. Like, they're not gonna give money to you. If you have a car, if you were dying, they'd be like, huh, and keep driving in their limousine, but they're not gonna help you. But yeah, it's just, I wonder how she would hear this story and interpret it. Like, and like people like that, like who are like, oh, money is great. Like, I heard like in some countries like Nigerian, they're like, oh, such and such is a businessman. That means you're a good person. I'm like, no, it doesn't. Cause I heard that like when Trump was running, there was somebody I talked to who was African. They were like, oh, but he's a businessman. So I don't understand. Like, what's the problem with him? He's a businessman. That means nothing.
Yeah.
It's so crazy.
Yeah. I don't know. Just, that's thought.
I'm also a businessman, but I'm a horrible businessman. Like I'm working on saving up to buy a new specialized sewing machine so that I can make stuff for people. And I actually have like this massive list of things that I make for people like
Oh,
it's a surgeon,
Oh, Senator. My mom has one of those.
but it's a super fancy. It also does cover stitches, which is cool. Like this is a cover stitch, so you see the multiple threads underneath, but you only see the two lines on top.
oh, that's pretty cool.
And this machine, I don't really want it, but I don't want it because it like isn't anything
Makes me
special
money,
for me.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
just like I can make cooler
nice.
things with it for
Yeah.
other people. Like,
Yeah.
here we go. Oh shit.
Oh, yeah.
Oh. absolutely beautiful. I picked up some fabric and we were in the Dutch's sister's wedding. And he said this beautiful, like, deep blue, that like, deep ocean blue.
I
And
think
then
she
it's
likes
got
blue, too.
what are the Hawaiian flowers? Not
Hibiscus?
Hibiscus, yeah. It's got these massive white hibiscus flowers at the bottom. And it's gonna be like this really cool, like crisscross
Chris-
dress. And it's
Oh.
super pretty.
Yes,
I know, but I need a machine to make it
Yeah.
cool. But yeah, like, the machine doesn't like, you know,
Yeah.
make me any money because I'm just using it to buy more fabric. That's even more expensive to make things for other
Yeah.
people.
Random question, somewhat related. What kind of, machine would I need to do this? Or like,
To fix his lupus coming off.
it's like taking off by like.
You could just answer that, honestly.
Okay.
Yeah, you might have.
Does
My,
he
my
even
shoes
need a
rip, these
lupus?
shoes rip all the time, not these ones, but yeah, I have the hand sew, it's annoying. Do
Yeah.
you know how to hand sew?
No.
He does.
You can teach him.
He said a pillowcase, I was there.
Oh, that was
A pillowcase.
posted.
That means you know how to do shoes.
I really relate to like the sun machine of like, I really want to have a big house. And it's not for me to have a big house because I want space to be able to offer to people to do events, the whole, the whole thing. Or presenting like community groups, like those are my things for it's so hard. It's
It's
a
hard
it's a
now.
hard thing to have here, you know.
You can move in with us. We're actually moving, we have to move in next.
Why?
next month.
Where are you going?
Our property owners' parents are doing this fun occupancy fraud thing.
Yeah, with the son who's in New York.
Yes,
Yeah.
they're claiming that they're moving in, they're not. The son has a business, e-commerce business in New York. He's actually hiring for it. It's all over LinkedIn.
Uh-huh.
And he's claiming that he's moving to the property, even though he's hiring in New York City. He has his own condo and everything up there. But that's the only way they can legally kick us out.
Yeah.
And so we have to move out by the end of December, but we're looking at another house. 4 bedrooms, 3 baths. But we want a big space so that we can move people.
That'd be fun.
Yeah. Are you still gonna be in the fellow?
Yeah, it's just like a mile down the road.
Have you guys seen the one with the 7 friends? They're in China, these 7 girls, and they actually bought a house and fixed it up. They go to visit every year, but that's where they're gonna retire to when they're older. Have you seen that one? It's like 3 floors. They already put their money in and fixed it. But yeah, that's their plan to live together. So it'd be super golden girls.
Oh, I love that.
It's becoming super popular, the whole like community living
Yeah,
thing, especially with like the millennials and Gen Z and stuff. They're like
yeah,
fishing in the money to buy land and then they just buy like shipping containers and throwing those in the home.
that's exactly what I wanna do. Yeah, me and my friend were talking about that. We were talking about fires, and she was like, well, shipping container might be like an oven if you catch it
Oh
on
my
fire.
God.
You better have a back door and a front door.
Yeah, that's the egress, yeah.
But it's not gonna catch on fire like a wooden house, but it'll cook you, so have a back door. Yeah, we were talking about that too.
I heard people mess up the structural integrity when they start cutting their shipping containers, because apparently like, it's like designed in a way where it's like really
It
structurally
reinforces
sound,
itself,
yeah. But then when you start like cutting pieces out of it, then it's like
Put in windows and doors and.
But I need a window. Doors. Yeah, I just want metal. I don't wanna live in a wooden. I'm very scared of wood. I don't know. Hmm?
Make
Would-
it break out.
Would because of the fire aspect or like you have a phobia of wood?
No.
Oh, no,
Because
what's
of
your-
fire. When I was growing up, we had like so many fires in our old apartment building. It was like this is crackheads. Or, you know, a couple of heroin addicts and they would be doing something they fall asleep.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, so we have fires all the time and the building's still there right now. This brick. So yeah, brick buildings. And then they have the 501 buildings, which is a legal loophole. So you can't build a wooden structure. There's a certain type of wood they use to build. It's like, you know, thin. It's not that thick. But you legally can't use it to go more than 5 because of the sprinkler system. But you can if you have the first floor as a retail space, because the retail space is concrete. Some weirdo was reading like the bylaws and he found this loophole. So now that's why every new building is like retail space.
Yep.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yep.
Even though the bottom part is not rented out, it doesn't matter because they're making money on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
There's some really.
Yeah.
Loopholes in that. Newsom just actually put in a really good one last year, and
Yeah.
they're voting on the vacancy tax one this year. Have you heard of that? Yeah, yeah. I think Berkeley's voting on it this month. I don't know when Berkeley votes, but it's November-ish.
Oh, I hope they tax
But-
them so hard.
Yeah,
Oh, you wanna have a vacancy?
Alright.
Give us money.
exactly.
No
They can
tax
do it
write-off.
in Europe for years.
Good.
Really, really smart, but.
Yeah.
Newsom just put in a new law that if you are one of those property owners who say you're moving out of the property, you legally have to do it within 3 months of the other tenant leaving, and you have to stay for a minimum of 12 months. Otherwise, they have to pay the.
Head and let's move into our words. Give you a chance to finish your conversation. Money's gonna come in this. evening.
He's so talkative today.
I don't know.
What wants to say?
He was very active in the car on the way here. I was like, what are you doing?
It's because he can see now.
Yeah.
Microphone?
So will you join me in remembering Jesus' invitation to us all? Well, the Lord Jesus, on the night he was betrayed, took bread, having given thanks, broke it, saying, "This is my body, broken for you. Whenever you eat of it, remember me." In like manner, after supper, he took the cup. And saying, "This cup is the new covenant, sealed in my blood. Whenever you drink of it, remember me." Therefore, whenever we eat the bread or drink the cup, we proclaim the Lord's death until he comes again. Jesus invited his followers to experience his love for them. He prepared to pour out his very life for them and for us. In the same way, we are now all invited to eat and drink with Jesus. During the next song, we encourage you to come to the station in the back and receive the elements. We have gluten-free as well as regular. That's part of our welcome. If you don't have elements in your home, we welcome Jesus to be present with you just the same. Please pray with me now. Jesus, we thank you for the way that you demonstrated the love of God for each of us by offering your own self. We remember you and we honor you this day. Fill us with your spirit as we eat this bread and drink this cup, and then nourished by that spirit, we also embody your love to each other, to our families, to our friends, to our communities, building in every way the true riches, the relationships that we are speaking of. Thank you for this time together, and thank you for these investments. Amen. Amen.
And it's just a couple of songs that I think are both being kind of connected to the theme of Ultimately, what we have is reliance upon our heavenly parents. Or we are calling to our heavenly parent to move in our world and trust us with true riches. We are also grateful for all we've been provided. We need to change who we are. So we ask Holy Spirit. We need to change. Don't be alone. Then we ask for that you give us nothing stone. We say, oh, come be the Once again. Arms open wide. This is my mother's word, and to my sleep, all nature sings around me. The music of the spirit. This is my mother's sweet. Centuries of skies and seas, her hand on wonders. This is my mother's word. The birds and carols sing. This is my mother's word. Forget that is not mother again. Shall be satisfied, and that will be one. Amen. Parent God, we are so grateful for all of the riches, the true riches that have been released on us. May we be good students of releasing them on others.
And anyone who would like to meet after for a short time of prayer to release some of those riches on the Middle East, I'm gonna do that. Anyone who wants to join me. Thank you.
May God bless you and keep you. May God make God's face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May God lift up the countenance of the divine on you and give you peace. Amen. Go in peace. We will be back here next week, 2 Sundays in a row. And I look forward to that with you. And then, yeah, in almost 2 weeks, we'll be worshiping